Welcome to another episode of the Eric Crocker Show. I am your host, former NFL and AFL defensive back. And on today's show, man, we are getting into all things pertaining to the 49ers, specifically talking about the 49ers versus the Pittsburg Steelers. Key matchups, we got 5 of them. And I tried to be a little creative with it, with the way that we're going to kind of present this whole thing. We're still on Nick Bosa watch, so he has not signed yet. How impactful is that to Nick Bosa potentially playing week 1? Does that hurt the 49ers? We're going to discuss that and much, much more. Let's go. Week 1 is here. Appreciate everybody that's tuned in, locked in. Shout out to everybody. Make sure that you
like and subscribe this video.
We got folks tuning in on Twitter. We got folks tuning in on YouTube. If you're on Twitter, make sure you come over here, type in Eric Crocker, and it should pop right up. We live already this morning. Of course, the show is always brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. We did a giveaway on, what was it, Friday morning? So if you weren't here, you missed out. $50. Here you go. We're going to do it again this week as well. If you don't have Underdog Fantasy, download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com and use promo code Crocky. When you do that, they will double your deposit up to $100. What does that mean? If you deposit $50 with your initial sign up, they will add $50 to it. If you deposit $100, they will add $100 to it. So then you'll have like $200 to play with. We're winning some money here, and you want to get some money as well. So Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. Go do that right now. We're still on Nick Bosa watch. And I'm not going to lie. When the initial Nick Bosa holding out thing happened, of course, just like the past contract negotiations with the 49ers, you thought it would come down to the wire, but not come down to the wire of that week 1, right? Like we thought, like, okay, it's going to come down to the wire, and first day of training camp, Nick Bosa, he's going to be out there. You're going to see him running on the field, and you're going to get the news that he's in the building and he's signing his contract. That clearly has not happened yet. And then you're thinking, okay, well, it's going to come down to the wire, and, potentially over the next week or so, like, he'll be signed. Like, don't worry about it. Like, they always get these things done with the contract negotiations. There's nothing to worry about. And I think we all felt very confident in that. Well, guess what? I think there is something to worry about a little bit, because we are officially into week 1. The 49ers will have already played a game at this time next week on the road in Pittsburgh. And again, we're going to get to some key matchups in that game, but I don't know if Nick Bosa is going to be a part of that. And let's say if he does sign today, how ready for that will he be? I think we can all agree that when it comes to Nick Bosa taking care of his body, being prepared for a season, we don't have to worry about that. But I have been harping on the things that go into ramping up for a season, and not getting that typically can kind of hurt your body a little bit. And we've seen holdouts in the past, and somebody in the chat was like, "Bro, you got the stats on that?" And I'm like, man, I wish I had kind of more research on guys that hold out. Are they more susceptible to that? Damn, that damn word kick my ass. To soft tissue injuries, hamstrings, quad injuries, things like that kind of end up being nagging things all year, might make you have to miss a game here and there. All right, so I'm more worried about that than him being in, having good conditioning, even though playing in the game is still different, but he has not even ramped up to anything. All right, like there hasn't been one practice yet or one workout where it's like I'm working out or going up against Trent Williams or even Colton McKivitz, who we'll talk about in a minute. All right, but not even having like those type of reps in training camp. And I know a lot of people are like, well, don't worry about it. Guys don't even play in preseason anymore. And there are a lot of guys that don't play preseason games. But you know what? Which Trent Williams, one of them. But Trent Williams has been practicing. Trent Williams has been going up against guys like Drake Jackson, who on this rep, Drake Jackson is going to go 100%, right? And not even being able to go up against that. And I've harped on the edge rushing drills that they do, right? Like you got the coach standing on the thing, he got that stick with the ball on it, and he moves, and you got to fire up and you hit the bag, right? And at the very least, you are competing against the guy next to you, right? Like when I see him, it's like I'm going to kick his ass on this drill. You're trying to fire off. You're putting your body in a position to where it's firing at 100%, or at least like that's your intention, and competing. When you're competing, you get the most out of yourself. I remember when I played for Modesto Junior College, they kind of cheated with the way they let us run our 40-yard dashes, and I ran the fastest 40 I've ever ran. Why? Because we got to run it against somebody else. So you get to race against someone similar speed, all right, and the coach says go, you got boom, you fire out, and you got one person clocking you, another person clocking the other guy. That's the fastest 40 I've ever run in my life. Why? It's because I'm competing. I'm competing against somebody else, as opposed to just running a 40-yard dash on the air and think you're pushing yourself or running your technique, right? You will get more out of yourself typically when you are competing against someone else. And so far, Nick Bosa, while I'm pretty sure he's training very hard, preparing the way that those Bosas do, when you're not competing against anyone, it's really hard to kind of get the most out of even a workout. So I hope everything's fine. I hope by the time we hang up on this show, Nick Bosa is running out there and he's about to practice. Maybe today isn't the day that matters most. Maybe it's Wednesday. All right, maybe it's Wednesday. I saw Chris Jones, the Kansas City Chiefs, they played the Detroit Lions Thursday night. Chris Jones is not out there. But it's a little different because their Wednesday, I want to say, was Sunday. Nick Bosa's Wednesday is Wednesday, which is typically the first day that you're out there for practice. You practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So we'll see what's going on with that. Hopefully by the time we end this show, we know a little bit more about Nick Bosa and what he's going through. But right now, it's not looking good in the sense of just being able to play every snap like he does, or damn near every snap, right? 3-down guy, help versus the run, obviously killer versus the pass, and you're going to be missing that. So, or you're going to be missing that to a certain extent. Like how many snaps will he realistically get if he hasn't had any ramp up period to practice? Maybe he just goes in there like, you know what? We're going to treat you like you're Travis Hunter on the Colorado Buffaloes, and you're just going to play every snap, and we'll just see what happens. Maybe they do that with Nick Bosa, but Travis Hunter has also been preparing to play both sides. Nick Bosa has not been competing against anybody, so just worries me a little bit. All right, and I don't know what y'all worry meter is in the chat. I'm looking at the chat right now. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We got the flames going up. Everybody feeling good this morning. Yeah. All right. This must be a Steeler fan. What up, fairies? I'm assuming. All right. Anyone who knows how to find out the fairy emoji is suspect themselves. All right. I don't know what's going on with the emojis in the chat right now. We got Joanna here. Joanna said, if he's not there week 1, my estimation of him will just plummet. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have any estimation of when he's going to sign or what he's going to be. We got OG Hill in the chat. He says maybe they took the vacation off to be with the family as they should. That must be a conversation in the chat. And Tommy says, nah, man. He says, I've been a 49er fan since the 80s. You should know this. Come on, 925 repping. All right, my bad. All right, here we go. So let's dive into what I think are the key matchups in this game. We got 5 of them. I will, of course, bring on you guys, the audience, the fans in the chat. And I'll put the link in the chat in a bit. And I want to hear maybe some of your, maybe not top 5 battles, but like a key matchup that you're looking for. All right. And I think we definitely have to start with this matchup. You got TJ Watt versus Colt McKivitz. And I think that's the obvious matchup. We'll get to some other ones that maybe aren't as obvious. But from the moment you saw that the 49ers are playing the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1, and you know what your starting quarterback is coming off of with this elbow injury, that's the thing that probably worried me the most. All right. TJ Watt is a game wrecker. I bet if you ask Pittsburgh Steelers fans, they probably view him in the same realm as Nick Bosa. This is a guy that has won Defensive Player of the Year. This is a guy that he can get you 22 sacks. And this is a guy that forces a ton of fumbles. And where's he coming off of? A lot of times where I see him rushing from the right side of that line, right? The right side of the offensive line, left side of the defensive line. So that's right over McKivitz. And I mean, he's a sack master. He's a game wrecker. And that's a guy that more than anyone in this game. And there's some other matchups, and we'll talk about it. And Minka Fitzpatrick, we'll get to him. But more than anyone in this game, I think he worries me the most. And maybe because, if I just knew, well, TJ Watt, he's going to be rushing over Trent Williams all game, then maybe I wouldn't worry as much. And then maybe I would be worried more about Alex Highsmith, who had 14 and a half sacks last year. and nobody really talks about him because they talk so much about Watt, at least amongst 49ers. But Watt coming off that edge, man, and what he is in that passing game and where we know the 49ers are at the quarterback position and how that there go that damn word kicking my ass again. 49ers, they get the quarterbacks hurt. However they do it. And I don't know how. I don't know why. I was asked about this on the radio, and it's like, why do 49ers quarterbacks get hurt at the clip that they do? And it's like, I have never seen anything like this, where heading into the season, we just automatically have to account for 49ers starters going to miss some games. And that is really wild. I don't know if it's something that Kyle Shanahan is doing. Obviously, I saw the JT Sullivan breakdown of Brock Purdy, and he talked about the 7-step drops and the where that puts the quarterback in the sense of his the vision of the edge rusher and his lane getting more upfield with how athletic edge rushers are. That could be it. And it kind of aligns with the hitting the elbow. When I saw that, I'm like, damn. So he was thinking more so. And typically, guys, you want to time your drop up with the route depth. So that's something that I have known, right? If you see a 5-step drop, a lot of people think that, oh, it's a 5-step drop because, I don't know, they just want to get him back. And it's like, nah, they're just kind of timing up with maybe a guy that's running a 15-yard stop route or comeback. So you want that quarterback kind of get back foot in the ground, boom, let it rip. And if he does like a 3-step drop, well, the receiver doesn't have enough time to get to his landmark before getting in and out of his break. Quarterback might have to throw it too soon, throws off timing and everything. You don't want that. But if you have a guy that is dropping back, maybe you give a play fake, then he gets into his drop. Maybe that makes it to where he doesn't have to take a straight 7-step drop and get back to where now that angle that the pass rushers are running kind of isn't as bad for especially the tackle or the quarterback potentially. So I don't know what Kyle Shanahan is doing different than the rest of the league as it pertains to guys just getting hurt. I want to say it's a coincidence, but I would say that the amount of injuries that he consistently has at the position makes it very difficult to have this many coincidences, to have to go through this many quarterbacks. And for another guy who runs his system, runs his scheme, we're kind of seeing some of those quarterbacks get hurt as well. You look at the Miami Dolphins, and you have Mike McDaniel over there. And Mike McDaniel, how many quarterbacks did he go through? Now, again, the context as to why each guy got hurt, when each guy got hurt, it could vary. It could be different. But again, is it something that's going on with the way that they are calling plays or utilizing their quarterbacks? You know, McDaniel went through, we saw how many times Tua got hurt. Now, maybe, Tua just got slammed on his head and he had a concussion, whatever. Or Tua tried to take off here and he got slammed on his head, concussion. They just had one last week, had another one, whatever. But then Teddy Bridgewater comes in. He gets hurt. And then this is another team that gets down to their third-string quarterback. You know, they play with, in the playoffs, a quarterback that was not Tua and it was not Teddy Bridgewater. It was somebody else. So they're another team that got down to their third-string quarterback. Coincidence that they run the same or similar concepts and scheme as the 49ers. I don't know. But I do know for me, it's hella weird. It's hella weird just kind of looking at the amount of injuries. So I want to say that it's a coincidence because I know how football works. I know guys are just going to get hurt during the season. But I've never seen quarterbacks get hurt to this extent. I don't know if it's something Kyle's doing, but I do know when you have TJ Watt on the other side, my ears perk up just a little bit more and say, all right, how do we keep these guys healthy? How do you get your quarterback to be able to get through a game? How do you keep him off your quarterback's elbow? Like, I don't know if anybody has forced more fumbles than him since he came into the league. It's a lot, all right? And if you don't know how many fumbles he has forced, hold on. I'm about to read it to you right now. So we're going to look at his stats. All right, I got TJ Watt's stats up. Where is forced fumbles? Here we go. 23 forced fumbles since he has come into the league. 23 of them. And that's even, in seasons. Last year, he didn't play every game. He played 10 games, it looks like. All right. But 23 forced fumbles. In 2019, he had 8. 2018, he had 6. 2021, he had 5. I mean, this is a guy who he's going to get to the quarterback. He's going to get to the quarterback at a high clip, and he's forcing fumbles. Now, I think when you hear forced fumbles, you're thinking a back has the ball. he's running and boom, somebody just punches it out. And that could be the case. But with this guy who's getting to the quarterback at the clip that he is, I would bet that out of those 23 fumbles, 18 are just hits on quarterbacks when they're not looking, or 18, part of it is quarterback puts his arm back to throw the ball and boom, he hits that elbow, ball comes out. I mean, this is a guy, he's getting to the quarterback. So when I talk about the number one matchup that I have right now on paper, TJ Watt versus Colton McKivitz, is because Watt is dangerous to your quarterback's health, especially a guy coming off of an elbow injury. So something I'm kind of just keeping an eye on, and I'll probably be watching that matchup closer than any other matchup that I have listed here. All right, we got some super chats in the chat right here. We got Gammon. He says, Deion Sanders for head coach 2024, Louis Riddick for GM. That would be dope to see that. I'm a big fan of Louis Riddick, and obviously I think everyone knows how I feel about Deion Sanders. You spelled his name wrong, but I'm not gonna hold that to you. All right. But Deion Sanders, I don't think Deion is leaving Colorado over the next couple of years, at least definitely not next year. And I don't think Kyle Shanahan will be fired at all. So, all right, we got SF Bay Drummer in the chat. It seems like Caleb Williams and Shador Sanders does everything Kyle wants in a quarterback, but in black. So we appreciate the contribution here, and I'll get to this, and then we'll get back to some of the key matchups. But we talked a little bit about this on Locked On 49ers last night, and we didn't dive too deep into it. But I was watching and I want to make sure and pull my notes up so I don't misspeak here. I was watching the Florida State against it was Florida State and who's the other team? No, who's the other team? It was Florida State and who? Who? Yeah, LSU. My bad. Oh, I don't know how I slipped my mind. So I was watching Florida State and LSU, and there was this receiver. His name is, I wrote it down here, Keon Coleman, 6'4", 215. He had 3 touchdowns, and most of his touchdowns were just like 50-50 contested catch, and I'm gonna dog you at the catch point. The first one wasn't. First one was like a double slant, made a guy miss, and he ended up scoring. All right. But I made a joke, and it was kind of a half-hearted joke, and I shouldn't do that because Kyle Shanahan, at least on social media, he's taking a lot of heat right now for just his handling of certain things, the way that he is, the way he comes off. And look, he won a Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure all that stuff will go away. But he does win a lot of football games. I think we understand that. But as it pertains to like how he evaluates players, I have really come to the conclusion, even though I made a kind of a joke about Keon Coleman, and you watch him, and it looks sweet. And I see my timeline, I see Twitter, like they're exploding. They're like 6'4", 215. Look at him at the catch point. He scores again, and he scores again, right? You see that? And I'm watching him, and I'm looking at, it's more so about how he does it as opposed to like what he's doing. And when you watch how he's doing, it's like, man, there's a lot of contested catch opportunities. There's a lot of, I'm just going to throw the ball up in the area of him. He had 9 catches for like over 120 yards, 3 tugs. And I just thought, man, I wish Kyle Shanahan liked big receivers. I kind of tweeted that out there. And when I think of Kyle, it's not so much that he doesn't like big receivers. He just, in his offense in general, and I'm going to tie it back into these quarterbacks here, but in this offense in general, he wants the guys to have specific roles in his offense, right? Unless you are a guy that just does everything, there will be a very specific role in the offense for you. So when you watch some of these guys and they're terrific contested catch guys, and you wonder, like, I would like that in the 49ers offense, whatever, like, give me that big receiver like that, big target, throw the ball in the air. Kyle is not going to value that because that's not what he's looking for in his offense. When he thinks of his offense and he's drawing it up, he's not thinking of, I get this receiver, and then, let me get this receiver where at the end of the day, we can just throw the jump ball to. Like, no, that's not what he's looking for. So I kind of was being funny about the big receiver thing, but typically that's really not his flavor unless he has a very specific role for you, like Juwan Jennings. And I got a lot of people commenting, oh, Juwan Jennings. And it's like, Juwan Jennings is Kyle Shanahan's flavor in the sense of a big receiver, but it's not because he's catching jump balls on guys. He's not even utilized that way. Essentially, Juwan Jennings is a move tight end. All right. He's a flex tight end, whatever you want to call it. He's a big slot. And he's not asked to really do much. It's, you're a bigger body. Can you be here? Can you block? All right, because Kyle envisions that in his scheme, like somebody that blocks very well, lined up in that inside. And then outside of blocking very well, can you run a quick out here and there? Can I get you run a bang eight here and there? All right, but clearly it's not. And if you look at the volume of opportunities that Juwan Jennings gets, it's not very much. He doesn't really have like this expanded passing game uh, uh, opportunities for Juwan Jennings. Like that's not what he's doing. I think he played like every game last year and had like 25 catches. All right, we talk about Juwan Jennings like what Juwan Jennings like Kyle likes him. Yeah, 25 catches. Like all right, that's okay, whatever. All right, but there's no like major role in the offense for Juwan Jennings. Now, if he can have Julio Jones, who he targeted 200 times, well, why does Kyle like 200 Julio Jones? Because Julio Jones does everything. Juwan Jennings is very specific. He's a 6'3" receiver that ran a 4.7. You know what I'm saying? Hey, run those quick outs, run this little slant or over route, and block very well. Like that is your role. That's your role. A role for Keon Coleman or Johnny Walker, guys that are 6'4", 215, 6'7", 237. Like, bro, like the way that y'all win, I don't really care for it. So Kyle ideally went like a guy like that, even though he looks sweet on TV. And then watch 49ers go draft him. Then it's like Crocky looks stupid. Who Kyle will like? Jaheim Bell, 6'3", 240, transfer from South Carolina, playing for Florida State right now. Swiss Army knife, can run the ball, can block. He's like a tight end. They put him out there on the edge. He can catch the ball. Run after catch is terrific. You talk about a clone of Kyle Juszczyk. That's Jaheim Bell. Dude is sweet. I was watching him. I'm like, this guy's sweet. Kyle would love this guy. He fit, and Kyle would automatically know this is exactly how I'm going to utilize this guy. This is how he fits into my offense. All right, that would be something fun to see. I'd watch that guy in the 49ers offense and what that would look like. All right, now you didn't ask me about all that. You asked me about Caleb Williams and Shedeur Sanders. Caleb Williams had this special play, right, where he drops back and he like you can see him manipulate the pressure, and he drops back and he steps up and he drops back and then he makes a guy miss and he shakes another guy, then he rolls out, then he fires the ball, touchdown. And I'm like, trade everybody. This guy's amazing, right? And it wasn't because of that. Like, that's not why I say he's amazing. There's some people like, well, Brock Purdy did something similar to that, like, but I just dropped it. And I'm like, this play isn't why I'm saying trade everybody. It was this play and the previous play that I posted where you see him escape the pocket, shake a defensive back out in space, outrun him, run into the sideline. Right before he goes out of bounds, he flicks the ball like 40 yards down the field into the perfect spot for the receiver. Like, dude's just special. So he did that, and then he did the other thing. I'm like, trade everybody. But then I see, this. Caleb Williams, like Kyle, he does everything he wants in the quarterback. And Caleb Williams does, but I think the fact that Caleb Williams bypassed on a quick out that was open on that touchdown throw, Kyle would probably hate that. Like, Kyle would rip him for that. So instead of just saying, you know what, this is my quarterback, and sometimes he's going to bypass this quick out that's open, and he's going to do some special stuff and throw a touchdown pass, like Kyle would probably rip him for that. That out, like, I need you to hit that. And that's all Kyle wants in his offense. So I don't know if Caleb Williams is the perfect fit in Kyle's offense. I think he's just a very talented quarterback that everybody else is going to really like. But Kyle, who can come off as a control freak, I think he's just looking for something very, very, very specific. And I think Shedeur Sanders is probably more of what Kyle's looking for. Shedeur Sanders is more of a pocket quarterback. And he's not, if he, and I got somebody in the chat last year, you guys are racist. If he was white, they would probably call him sneaky athletic. You know what I'm saying? But Shedeur Sanders, he's going to drop back and he understands where to go with the ball. You see kind of him paired up with his offensive coordinator. It felt like they see the same thing. When I was watching, it's just like, look, there's going to be time for me to have to make a special throw, and I can do that. There's going to be times for me to let it rip. I can do that. There's going to be times where I need to just play in rhythm and timing, and consistently, I'm going to do that. And there's going to be times where I'm just going to get the ball out in space to my guy to make a play, and I'm going to consistently do that. And I don't even think I think there was like maybe like one decision that I thought, as far as him throwing the ball, was like bad. Outside of that, I thought he was like pinpoint accurate, on the money. I threw one deep ball a little bit, but outside out. I mean, he was throwing the ball downfield, hitting guys in the hands, guys opportunity. I was very impressed. And anybody that watched him at Jackson State, like, Shedeur Sanders did that. Like, the Sanders did that at Jackson State. Like, he was good. He was a 2-year starter there. The second year, he was like player of the year in this conference. Like, he's been good. People just doubted that he could do it at the next level for whatever reason. The guy who's a 4-star recruit offers to Alabama. Yeah, offers to damn near every major program. Like, he could have played anywhere. He chose to play with his dad, and he got knocked for that, which is crazy. He's a good quarterback, very good. All right, but anyways, appreciate the contribution. SF Bay Drummer, you gave me an opportunity to kind of touch on some of the things I feel like Kyle's looking for. Unless he feels you just do everything, he sees his offense being viewed a very specific way, and he wants you to fit into that. Unless you're Julio Jones, and there's only one Julio Jones. Appreciate everybody in the chat right now. Y'all know what to do, man.
Like and subscribe this video.
All right. We got some more stuff in the chat here. Some more Deion Sanders stuff. Deion Sanders for head coach in a few years. It's funny that now I'm seeing that, like, Deion Sanders hit good. And it's like, I heard how y'all talked about Deion. Like, people, and maybe it's just one of those things where you just see the negative, and the negative typically is much louder than the positive. The way that he was talked about when he took over at Colorado, and you see players leaving, it's like, bro, I got a clean house. These dudes were hella sorry. They won one game last year. People have gotten an uproar because, oh man, he lost his best receiver from last year. You really think he gave a damn about the leading receiver at Colorado having 400 yards and I'm losing him? I don't care. Got my bags with me. They're Louis. And just saw him have 4 guys over 100 yards receiving. Now everybody loves Deion. There's a lot of people, though, they're waiting in the weeds. They're waiting for him to lose. If Deion loses to Nebraska, they'll come crawling out them little holes, and they're going to be on his head. But I love Deion. My guy Roscoe's could tell y'all, I was like, hey, man, I want Deion to take over at USC. I want him to take over at USC because he's a culture changer. They obviously went with Lincoln Riley. They got Lincoln Riley, but I want them to get Deion. All right, here we go. Back to key matchups that I see in the 49ers Steelers game. All right, key matchup number 2. Kyle Shanahan against Minkah Fitzpatrick. All right, and it's kind of a 2-part one here. It's Minkah Fitzpatrick and it's Holcomb and Roberts. All right, those are the middle linebackers. But it starts with Minkah Fitzpatrick because I think it's very clear where Brock Purdy likes to win. First of all, I think just Kyle in general, the way that he calls offense. He wants to manipulate guys at that second level. The linebackers, can I get you to kind of move a little bit when I motion Debo this way and I fake it to him? Can that move this linebacker a little bit this more? But then I get the little fake to him. And can I get that guy to step up? Then boom, hit somebody right behind him. Right. And he hit that guy right behind them, because you stepped up a little bit, you widened out. It created that window for my quarterback to throw into, and he's going to be accurate. He's going to be on time, and he's going to hit Debo Samuel in stride so he can have a big run after catch. Like, I feel like ideally that's what Kyle wants. And I think that matches up very good with what it feels like Brock Purdy does well. Get the ball out, timing. Hey, man, he's going to handle the ball good, play fakes. Boom, boom. Kyle's like, ooh, I love that. All right. Minkah Fitzpatrick's going to be watching all that. And Fitzpatrick, again, I talked about TJ Watt like he's the boogeyman. If TJ Watt is Michael Myers, y'all know I'm afraid of Michael Myers. All right. If TJ Watt is Michael Myers, I think Minkah Fitzpatrick is Freddy Krueger. Right, like he's kind of lurking and he's watching, and obviously nobody's asleep in this moment. And maybe that's a bad example because he's only really like he's scariest when you're sleeping. All right, so we're not gonna use Freddy Krueger. We'll use Jason Voorhees. All right, so Minkah might be Jason, and he's just gonna catch you slipping, catch you lurking. All right, and he's gonna come down and he's gonna watch Brock, and Brock's gonna want to get that ball out of his hands. And I don't care what anybody says. Brock Purdy is liable to put the ball in harm's way. Like, he just is. I think he kind of has like a gunslinger mentality. He's really a lot like Jimmy Garoppolo. He moves better, but he's a lot like Jimmy G. And maybe he doesn't throw with as much velocity as Jimmy G. So there's going to be times where he just might miss or not see that guy. And if he doesn't, like, that's Minka Fitzpatrick. Like, that's what he does. He is a playmaker. There was nobody in that draft, in the 2018 draft, that I wanted more than Minka Fitzpatrick. And anybody that was like following me during that time, I know there was some like a D lineman that people were really high on. I can't remember exactly who it was, but I'm like, Minka, like, that's the guy. 49ers met with him twice. I'm like, oh, they're going to draft Minka. They're going to draft Minka. Like, this is the best defensive player in this draft. They're going to draft Minka. They met with him multiple times. And then they get up to the podium and they're like, with the 9th pick in the 2018 draft, the San Francisco 49ers select, I'm like, they're drafting Minka, Mike McGlinchey. I'm like, oh, wow. You don't get Minka Fitzpatrick. That's crazy. Well, anyways, Minka Fitzpatrick goes on to be an all-pro. He's a tremendous playmaker. And Kyle versus Minka Fitzpatrick is something I'm definitely going to look forward to. How do you manipulate Minka Fitzpatrick? How do you get Minka to move, off of where you want him to be, right? Because that's what Kyle specializes in. Manipulating coverage, manipulating guys underneath. Can he manipulate the safeties? And I think if there's one thing I've seen him kind of struggle at a little bit, it's in his quick game, getting the safeties out of there. You get the linebackers out of there. It creates those windows, but it's going to get Minka Fitzpatrick out of there. That's the key. So that's my second key matchup. It was kind of a two-part. It's Kyle Shanahan versus Minka Fitzpatrick, but also Holcomb and Roberts, because I think this whole offense down there is predicated on moving those linebackers out the way. All right, matchup number 3, Terrell Austin, and that's the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers, versus Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. All right, excuse me. CMC, the way Kyle Shanahan has utilized him, not just as a runner. Like, I think that we could say in the games that, it's not a hot take, but Elijah Mitchell, he ran very well last year. And if you just kind of line up his runs with Christian McCaffrey, there was times where McCaffrey ripped off some big runs, and that was awesome. I was on a consistent basis, though, like just like running the ball, what it looked like. You might say Elijah Mitchell could potentially be kind of just a better, just pure runner, like just hand the ball off and what it looked like. Elijah Mitchell, I thought he was really awesome last year. But that's not when you think of the impact of Christian McCaffrey, it's not even just so much as a runner. It's everything else. It's just the eyes that are drawn to him. It's like when he motions this way, like how everybody's like, where the fuck is he going? Why is he going over there? Right? Like they're looking at Christian McCaffrey. When you see Deebo Samuel, and Christian McCaffrey in the backfield at the same time, and what that does to defenses, they're probably like brains are going haywire, right? But I think it starts with Christian McCaffrey and just really accounting for him every single snap. You got to account for him every snap. You have to understand exactly like where is he at? Where is he going? Why is he lined up there? What the hell is Kyle Shanahan doing? Like, why is Kyle putting McCaffrey in this spot? Why is McCaffrey motion this way? Like, you have to account for him. And then just when it's like you're doing everything to stop Christian McCaffrey, it's like, wow, they fooled us. They never, any of y'all watch Suits? I know there's some people that watch Suits and they've been watching since 2011. I'm not going to lie. It popped up on Netflix. I started watching it. I'm like, wow, this show's amazing. I kept watching it. I ended up watching every season. I had to watch season 9 on Peacock. All right. But first of all, I probably could be a lawyer now. But anyways, I watched I watched Suits, and they always had like, it was everybody, they were always like a step ahead, right? Like they always, they made this move to make this move, knowing that this person would react this way, then they make this move, right? And I was like, wow, these lawyers are hella good, right? And I wonder, I won an injury settlement, and I'm like, I wonder if that's what they did. Like, were my lawyers working like this? All right, but anyways, I think that's Kyle Shanahan, where it's like, he's a lawyer. He's Harvey Spectrum. All right. Kyle Shanahan is Harvey Spectrum. And Harvey Spectrum, he was amazing in his role. All right. But he knew how to close. That's what they call him, the closer. Kyle knows how to close, maybe not on the season in the Super Bowl, but he definitely knows how to close on a play-to-play basis and just get you to, he's going to throw the cheese out there. You're going to bite, and then he's going to hit this guy. And the cheese is Christian McCaffrey. Every play, the cheese is Christian McCaffrey. He's going to be out somewhere. You think you got him, and then boom, Deebo Samuel wide open, 40-yard touchdown run after catch opportunity, right? Like, and so how is Terrell Austin going to defend Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. Like, that's a key matchup, in my opinion. Just watching that. Key matchup. Okay, so I'm going to keep my eyes on that. I see Christian McCaffrey. We know what he is. We know what he does. We know how special he is. But it's really just he's the cheese. He's the bait. And how is Kyle Shanahan baiting you to hit Deebo Samuel? Everybody's looking at fantasy football. Is like they're still drafting. I'm not drafting Brandon Ayuk before Deebo Samuel. I'm just not. McCaffrey is the debate. Deebo is going to win. It's going to be a big year for Deebo Samuel. All right, fourth key matchup. And at this time, I'm going to put the link in the chat so y'all can start coming up. You get one key matchup. All right, y'all get one key matchup that you're looking forward to seeing, and you can break it down. Go ahead, click the link in the chat if you want to come on live. If you're over on Twitter or X, whatever the hell you want to call it, all right, come over here on YouTube, type in the Eric Crocker, and you should see this. We on live right now, baby. And that's the only way I think you can click this link to come on and talk. But the fourth matchup, we got Alex Highsmith versus Trent Williams. We've talked a lot about the boogeyman, Michael Myers, and that's Watt. But on the other side, he has somebody that's really good. He has a good partner. Did anybody watch the last, I think it was Halloween Ends, and Michael Myers, like, he finally died, right? But he had like this, he had a sidekick, which was really weird. And I think Michael Myers, one thing I kind of learned from watching this, or at least the way they try to spin it, he gets like power off of killing people. But he had a partner who was like, bro, like, you're being a punk. Like, you're not being yourself. It's like this kid, right? So, like, he's helping him. He's killing whatever. He's getting caught up. I mean, he's getting Michael Myers to get his power back. And it was really weird. It's like, Michael Myers don't need no effing sidekick, but he had a sidekick. Anyways, Michael Myers in this situation obviously is Watt. His sidekick is Alex Highsmith, a guy who had 14 and a half sacks last year. And this is a guy who is, he's good. So you're thinking like it's just, oh man, how's McKivitz going to hold up against Watt? And now you got to worry about the sidekick and how Trent Williams is going to hold up against him. Now, I think we just don't worry about Trent Williams. So like Trent Williams, if he were a cornerback, you know, the only thing to compare him to is probably like Darrelle Revis. And, you know, I watched, when I was with the Jets, we watched a lot of 2012 film, and we got to see Darrelle Revis. People know Darrelle Revis was on the island, but when you watch the All 22, he was truly on the island. They would even run some like zone concepts, things like that, like some fire zones, and they would say, but Revis, you just play man. We're actually going to shade the safety over here, and we're going to do all this. We're just going to leave you alone, all right? And that's how I feel about Trent Williams, where it's just like, Trent, like, he's good. We're not worried about him. If we're going to double, it's going to be somewhere else, or, you know, if we're going to whatever. But Trent, he's going to do his thing. He's good. So Highsmith has to go up against Trent Williams. What's that going to look like? Can he get Trent once? And will that one time be a big play, detrimental to the 49ers offense? I don't know. But on a consistent basis, we're not worried about it. But you have to acknowledge it as a key matchup, because this is a guy who, you know, if 49ers had Nick Bosa and somebody else on the other side that had 14 and a half sacks last year, like, what would we be saying about that edge rusher? Like, what would we be saying about that pass rusher? I say edge rusher, but they're like 3-4 outside linebackers. But what would we be saying about them? Like, man, that's, you know, oh man, Drake Jackson had 14 and a half sacks. He's nice. Oh man, we got Nick Bosa and we got Drake Jackson with 14 and a half sacks. Well, that's probably how they feel about TJ Watt, because they feel like TJ Watt is on par with Nick Bosa. And then they got another guy on the other side who gives you 14 and a half sacks. That's scary. All right. Now, last, this is the fifth and final matchup. All right. That I think, you know, key matchups. We've already listed off a bunch of them. We got TJ Watt versus Colt McKivitz. We got Kyle Shanahan versus Minka Fitzpatrick and Holcomb and Roberts. All right. So it's kind of that middle of the field guys. You got Terrell Austin versus Christian McCaffrey and Deebo Samuel. Is Austin going to take the cheese, which we've already established? The cheese is Christian McCaffrey, right? He's kind of throwing the cheese out there. Go ahead and bite, because we're going to hit you with Deebo. Then you got the fourth one was Alex Highsmith versus Trent Williams. Last one, George Pickens and Deontay Johnson versus Travarius Ward and Amber Thomas. And I see the chat right here. Mike Scott says, Michael Myers had a sidekick. He did in the goddamn Halloween Ends. He had a sidekick. I know. It was really weird. It was weird to me too. Like, why does Michael Myers have a sidekick? He really had a sidekick. That was wild. All right, but I say George Pickens and Deontay Johnson versus Travarius Ward and Amber Thomas. And if you realize, I didn't even mention the corners of Pittsburgh Steelers because I don't think it matters. Kyle Shanahan, from what I've seen, he's typically not a guy that's just like, you know what, we're just going to attack these outside guys, right? He's going to attack the guys I mentioned, Minka Fitzpatrick, Holcomb, and Roberts. Those are the guys where he really wants to put in conflict. The outside guys, maybe he looks at it like we can hit a guy with a double move here and there and he'll bite. I think he did that with Diggs in the playoffs a couple years ago. But just in the grand scheme of things, in his offense is really not predicated on putting the corners too much in conflict, maybe here and there, but not really. So that's not really a key matchup. But Pickens and Deontay Johnson, they will. Because if there's one thing that I realized just watching them play, how they play and what they do, they are going to try to stretch the field. And I think that the 49ers corners, who I don't think they're like this big, they're not a big issue. And I think they play well, especially if they match up well. But you can kind of run by them for whatever reason. I don't know why, but Ambry Thomas ran very well. Why are people getting behind you? Why are they getting on top of you? All right. Travarius Ward, like he could run. Why do people get behind you? Why are they getting on top of you? I think part of it is them playing off coverage, especially those two guys. They're a little tight a little bit. They don't transition extremely well on verticals from an off coverage turn and run standpoint. Maybe from a shuffle, they'd be much better suited, but they don't play like that. They kind of have a little bit more square, which I typically would do for man, but those aren't guys that I would play man and off. So if they just say, Travarius Ward, you're going to go guard George Pickens, I'll tell you what, if Pickens is going to make a great catch downfield, it's going to be with Travarius Ward all over him. Because Ward from press is really going to challenge you. You're not going to be running free. All right, so I would just say in this game, if I'm the 49ers defensive coordinator, Wilkes, Travarius Ward, wherever George Pickens goes, you go. And whether we're playing zone, whether we're playing press, whatever it is, you go him because they match up well. Travarius Ward matches up well with Pickens. You are just going to have to make a great catch at the catch point. And as we've seen with Pickens, that might not be a 50-50 ball. That might be more, 70-30 with the way that he comes down with it. But I like my chances with Travarius Ward in that matchup. Now, the other matchup, Deontay Johnson, who, my guy Chris Roscoe's, he doesn't think highly of Deontay Johnson like that. He thinks he stinks. He can't catch the ball, whatever. I don't know. I'm watching preseason games. I'm watching them run bombs and him just running by guys and catch the ball. So that worries me in the sense of Ambry Thomas because I don't think Ambry Thomas is great. Now, you notice I didn't mention Deommodore Lenoir. The last preseason game, they have him in the nickel spot. Is that what they're going to continue to do? Is when they have three receivers out there, which I think they'll do a lot, they're going to move Deommodore Lenoir into the slot and have Ambry Thomas on the outside? Or is Ambry just going to play outside all game and Lenoir only comes in nickel situations? I don't know. But I know that they will go up top. And Kenny Pickens was not scared to throw the go route. We don't really see 49ers throw go routes. The Pittsburgh Steelers, traditionally, they have thrown go routes. And I don't know if this is one of those things where their head coach, Mike Tomlin's like, you know what? We are going to just have y'all run go route. We're going to throw it. We're going to air it out. This might not be Antonio Brown. This might not be Martavius Bryant or what is his name? Martavius Bryant. Yep. Might not be Mike Wallace, but we're still going to treat it like it is. And we got Deontay Johnson. We got George Pickens. We got Allen Robinson. We got Calvin Austin in the way that we're going to utilize these guys, and we're throwing the ball downfield, down the sideline. So if they continue to do that, that's something that definitely worries me with Ambry Thomas on the outside. And it worries me with Travarius Ward if he's in off coverage. And it's like Deontay Johnson. If it's Travarius Ward versus George Pickens and he's pressed, I'm not worried about it. It does not worry me. All right. So those are my key 5 matchups that I'll be looking forward to seeing in the 49ers versus Pittsburgh Steelers. We listed them all off again. TJ Watt versus McKivitz, Kyle Shanahan versus Minka Fitzpatrick. And then, part B to that is Holcomb and Roberts. Terrell Austin, the defensive coordinator for the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel. Christian McCaffrey, he's the cheese. All right. The fourth one, Alex Highsmith against Trent Williams. Alex Highsmith had 14.5 sacks. He's a sidekick to TJ Watt. He's, TJ Watt is Michael Myers. Highsmith is Michael Myers' sidekick in that last Michael Myers movie. Then we got George Pickens and Deontay Johnson versus Travarius Ward and Ambry Thomas. Again, I'm not worried about Travarius Ward if he's pressed up on George Pickens, but I'm always going to be worried about Deontay Johnson versus anybody because they will throw the ball downfield. All right, so that's how I see kind of those matchups there. Obviously, we'll get deeper into those matchups But for now, we are bringing on my guy Gammon. So, Gammon, welcome to the show.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing better. Just resting and icing as much as possible. But
You got the vasectomy.
I did.
Not bad, right?
It wasn't, and I really want to give a shout out to the chat for helping me out so much. Number one with the Stream East, but then even Johnny Dell Football Academy, just everyone's kind of advice and kind of what to do. But yeah, I listened to everything because I'm not gonna lie, that was scarier than any type of like roller coaster. You know that feeling when you get in a roller coaster and it's just kind of just going up and up and up. I was just like, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. Like, what am I doing here? But I got it done, and I'm again just thankful to everybody for giving me that advice. But yeah, I showed the clip to my wife about you talking about shooting up the club and all that kind of stuff. She was dying laughing.
Shooting up the club, carefree. I have been shooting up the club now for about 8 years. Zero ramifications of it. So yeah,
absolutely. Niner Gang Tay said, I hope that's what you really wanted to do, because sometimes I think you meant to say you can't reverse it. It is. I'm 38. My son is going to turn 10 this September 6th. And then my daughter, she's on the autism scale, and it's just, the chances. And also my wife had 2 really kind of tough pregnancies. So, but I know that's not what everyone wants to hear about, is pregnancies and vasectomies. Yeah. But I actually had a couple of things that I was thinking about, was because I'm glad you brought up like Highsmith, because I think there's a lot of defensive players, because we know Pittsburgh has a really good defense, but there's a lot of players and matchups that we don't really know too much about them. Cameron Hayward is one of them. Like, that guy is 30.
I didn't even mention Cam Hayward, and he's a game record. Yeah,
he's a monster. Yeah, 12 sacks, and him going up against Banks or whatever, I think it's going to give our interior of our offensive line is going to be a nightmare, and that allows guys like Watt and Highsmith to kind of really eat. But the other thing too I'm looking at is when the 49ers, when we kind of go into more of like a 12 personnel with our 2 tight ends, is going to be, Kittle and Warner having to pick up guys like Watt and Highsmith kind of out there on the edges. I think that's going to be really, really intriguing. So it'll be I'm hoping that Warner kind of gets his, he builds up on his confidence, because I don't know how that young man must have felt after watching Brock Purdy, and everyone kind of blamed it on the second, tight end, but I'm sure he reads Twitter and is kind of like, dang. But I hope he gets his redemption arc, because I really do have high hopes for him. And then also too, I'm just I'm curious to see also too what Juwan Jennings does. I think this could be a pretty big game for him. But I wanted to ask you though, Croc, since a lot of us kind of went in for the underdog fantasy, and some of us took you up on that bet when you're talking about what was it, the over or under for 775 yards for Brandon Ayuk receiving this year. So when I looked at that over like a 17 game stretch, he would just need to get 46 yards per game.
Right.
With how talented this defense is, how many yards do you think a guy like Brandon Ayuk could potentially get?
Well, what is his underdog number for this game? Have you looked at that yet?
I have not. I should have prepared myself for that one.
Don't worry. Crocky to the rescue. I'll look it up right now.
Okay.
All right. But so we're looking at Ayuk.
Yeah, because I'm kind of curious to see what they think. And I want to ask you this question: is who do you think will have more receiving yards? Do you think it'll be Ayuk, or do you think it could be like Christian McCaffrey?
So I actually might go with Christian McCaffrey in this game. And I got Ayuk's numbers up here right here. So if y'all see, this is his numbers for this game. 3.5 receptions, 42.5 receiving yards. I kind of like both of these plays as it pertains to Brandon Ayuk. And chat, how are y'all feeling about that? So these are the these are the lines. These are underdog fantasy lines for Brandon Ayuk. for this upcoming game against Pittsburgh, I like those numbers right there. So you talked about just in this game what would it look like with Brandon Ayuk, but I think 3.5 receptions, I can definitely see that. You look at how many times he was targeted in one drive or two drives in the preseason game. Again, that I start to kind of gauge things off of that. And it was very clear, like, oh yeah, 49ers, they're going to kind of implement him in the passing game for sure. I think he was targeted. He had the one that went to he took to the 2-yard line. He had the hitch. He had the fade. All right. So he was targeted 3 times on 2 drives. I think if you continue to kind of not maybe at that trajectory, but if he gets 6 targets, then I think he'll hit those 3.5 receptions and definitely go over those yards. So
because the thing that I'm worried about, Croc, is will our quarterback Brock Purdy have enough time to throw? Because when you're kind of looking at this Steelers defense, I just don't see Brock Purdy having a lot of time to throw. And also, too, you going to this game, because I think this is going to be an absolute defensive battle. I'm curious to hear what you think that the score is going to be at the end of the game. And also, too, how crazy would it be if this game came down to a final field goal kick, and then we're kind of have we have our third string kicker that's kind of out there. I feel like that's something that not a lot of people are talking about bringing into account. But what do you think the possibility is that this kind of comes down to a last second field goal?
Definitely high possibility. Now, here's the one thing, and I guess there's 2 things here. One, the 49ers traditionally, I think offensively have gotten off to slower start, especially when they're playing good defense. Now, we know a couple years ago, 49ers played Detroit Lions week 1, and there was an offensive explosion for the 49ers in that game. You also had a pick 6 from Dre Greenlaw, so I don't want to kind of skim over that. But they have kind of started slower offensively. Now, the other side of that is at no point have I seen Brock Purdy be really slow offensively over an entire game. I've seen it in a half where it's not looking like a great half for Brock, but then it's okay, he picks it up. The offense picks it up. They start scoring some points. Outside of the Dallas Cowboy playoff game, I haven't seen him necessarily look that way. Now, if Steelers watch that Cowboys game, and I don't know what, and maybe this kind of answers your questions more. I did not go back and watch that game. I don't know exactly what Dallas was doing, but clearly they did something to stifle the 49ers offense over the entire game. Mm-hmm. Will the Steelers, who have the guys to do it, take a page out of that book? And if so, what does it look like? We've talked a lot about, there's film on Brock now. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? And Kyle Shanahan, he's the guy that can kind of be the equalizer throughout all this. But when you do have dudes on defense and you're playing they got guys, right? Pittsburgh does have guys. And they're well, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We can rush with this. We can just leave these 4 to rush and, or these 5 guys, whatever it is. If they take a page out of Cowboys book, then there definitely is a scenario where things do get a little tricky for Purdy. So in that scenario, this would be a low scoring game and come down to a kicker who was on the streets a week ago. That could potentially be scary.
Absolutely. Somebody so somebody said I took Ayuk. I took his receiving yards already in reference to Ayuk. JM617 said Ayuk definitely getting 5 or more. So I wanted to ask you, do you see Ayuk really getting something like 6 receptions, or do you think this is going to be something where, because of the rush, and I don't know too much about their linebackers, but it really does feel like this could be a game where they're going to be leaning on Kittle and somebody like Christian McCaffrey a whole lot more in this matchup, and then trying to hope that they can manufacture screens with Deebo Samuel kind of in that short, quick game.
Well, and I talked about, I forgot the slant that Ayuk caught in that. No, that was the game before. He's going to get targeted. I think he's going to get 4 catches. Now, that's not a whole lot, but it would hit the over or the higher on the receptions for Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. Download the app. Go to underdogfantasy.com right now. All right, but I think he's going to hit the over on these numbers. So to what extent is he going to have an 8 reception game? I think that starts to play into more of, how much time do the 49ers have consistently, or are they going to dial up a big play for him? But in the quick game, Ayuk works in that as well. So I can see him getting 4 receptions. I'm not sure outside of that, but I would definitely take the receptions on that right there.
Absolutely. And I just want chat to know I'm not sleeping on Purdy. I saw somebody saying, people are sleeping on Purdy this year. I'm not sleeping on Purdy. I am really kind of concerned because it seemed like it was in practice, and I know that it's practice, but he was throwing picks to our safeties, and I do think that Minkah Fitzpatrick is just one of the best safeties in football right now. So I am a little bit worried about that as far as the gamemanship is going there. What is, when you were evaluating him, what were some of the things that you saw? Does he have that like kind of that elite Earl Thomas can just cover an ungodly amount of the field and green and grass as far as like hand skills? What is like his like top 3 qualities when you're kind of evaluating him coming out of college? And what were some of his weaknesses too that you saw?
Okay, so Minkah had no real weakness. He didn't really have a weakness. He was very fluid. He was a really good athlete, ran in the 4.4s. He had size. I think the things that stood out immediately, the more you kind of dove into like who he was an amazing leader. He was a guy that, as a true freshman, started for Nick Saban. And at that point, you didn't really see that a lot. Like, you didn't see true freshmen come in and be able to like, oh, I'm going to start on this defense. And he found different ways. Like, all right, I just want to make sure that he's on the field. So he had the star position. So he played more in that star slot spot. They would play him sometimes outside. He covers from there. So he was very versatile. And then he was just a playmaker. So I'd say, again, the top 3 characteristics, it was leader, versatile, playmaker. And I think that all of those were extremely high at a high level. He was picking the ball off, taking it back to the crib, forcing takeaways. He was, blitzing off the edge. I mean, it was amazing watching his film, the best safety film I've seen. And I know some people would say like, oh, maybe Derwin James, and Derwin was great in that class as well. But everything that Minkah kind of gave you, it was like, man, and it just didn't align with the timeline of where the Miami Dolphins were. They were kind of in this transition period. Remember, he got drafted by Miami, and they were in this kind of transition period, and like they sucked. And then they were like kind of like actively tanking. And he's like, what the hell is this? I'm not doing this, playing for the team that's tanking. So, he kind of forced his way out of there. And Pittsburgh was like, oh, we'll take him. They traded the first for him, and it's paid off. He's been an all-pro. So, as far as him, he's a difference maker. I think that's the best way to say it. Does he play safety in the same way that Earl Thomas did? I mean, I guess he could do the single high stuff. I think it was different because the Seahawks sat in a lot of single high stuff where you just see a little bit more versatility in the defense with the Steelers. But, and again, that's not a knock on Earl. It was just like, when I think of Earl Thomas for Seattle, it's single high. And he did some amazing things from there, squatting on routes, robbing overs, things like that. They played it to the highest level. But Minkah, I've just seen him just line up in a lot more places consistently to where, it could be a little bit more challenging to stay away from him if you're Kyle Shanahan. But I do think you have to identify where he's at pre-snap.
So I know I want to say about a month ago on one of your Locked On 49ers podcasts, you were kind of controversial in your statement about you're talking about what you would be willing to trade Trey Lance for. And I think at the time you had said something like a second round pick. I think this is a month ago before there was this big fallout. I'm kind of looking at the chat, and chat is kind of talking about trading Nick Bosa. And my question for you is, just spitballing it, throwing it out there, because I do believe that Nick Bosa will be signed, but you're the GM of the 49ers. What would you accept in a package or a trade for Nick Bosa? What would it take? Someone calls up, you're like, you know what, I'm just not going to be able to get this deal done for what he wants, but I will, if you can bring me this to the table, I'll take this. I know it's kind of blasphemy at this point, but
and so I was on Bleacher Report, and they had me doing like hypothetical trades or whatever, right? And the fans hated it. First of all, it was like probably one of the more challenging streams I've ever done, because this is not something that I would do. Like, y'all know me. I'm not going to come up here and, all right, guys, here's 5 hypothetical trades for the 49ers this year and just come up with like this crazy things like that. I like to talk football. So even Bleacher Report like put me in that position. It's like, man, that ain't shit I do, man. But all right, you're gonna pay me for it. All right, cool. So basically what I'm saying is I kind of hate your question a little bit because you're putting me in this spot that's not really what I do, because I just don't see the 49ers trading him. I also didn't see him holding out this long. So there's that part of it as well. But as far as Nick Bosa, if the 49ers are, all right, we're going to treat him like we did DeForest Buckner, where eventually the deal, it was just like, he just wants too much. So we're just going to move off of him. So if you're telling me like that's the scenario that happens where, DeForest Buckner was everything that you want. He was an all-pro defensive lineman. He was a great leader. He was healthy all the time. He played down there every snap. He was breaking records for like most defensive snaps by 49er, right? And they still traded him away. So if you're telling me they treat Nick like they treated DeForest Buckner, I would need more than what the 49ers got for Buckner. Now, the interesting thing with that was at the time of the Buckner trade, you knew what the pick was, right? Like if I trade Nick Bosa right now, I don't know if it's the 13th overall pick or if it's the 32nd overall pick. You know what I'm saying? So, okay, yeah, I get 3 first-round picks for him, but if they're all the 32nd pick in the draft or 29, 30, 29, like, it's like, okay, like, but I just got 2 picks at the tail end of the first round because I expect the 49ers to be good. Like, is that worth it? Like, when you put that number on it? So I guess I can ask the chat this. Would you say, all right, we're going to trade Nick Bosa for 3 first-round picks, but each of the first-round picks it's the 29th pick, the 30th pick, and then the 28th pick for the next 3 drafts? Or 2 first-round picks, but it's this year it's the 8th overall pick. Next year, this is a team that's not good. It potentially is the 17th overall pick. Which one would you trade? Which one would you accept? The 8th and the 17th, or the 3 that's probably going to be the last couple of picks in the draft, but for 3 straight? So do you want those 3 or do you want those 2?
I think that's an excellent question. Static Seg brought up a question. She said, "Should you all do it for, or would you all do it for Kyler Murray?" And that would be such an interesting thing, like the first and second picks, and then just kind of swapping for that. And then I kind of have a follow-up question to that too.
Oh, wait. So are you saying, okay, let's say hypothetically speaking, first of all, they wouldn't do it then.
No.
But let's say hypothetically speaking, the Cardinals have the number 1 overall pick. And are you saying we'll trade Nick Bosa for number 1 and Kyler Murray?
I'm not sure if that's what you're saying, but in that proposition, I mean, you'd kind of have to, right? Because you're talking about then maybe a chance to then swap Kyler Murray, because the Cardinals.
No, you get stuck with Kyler Murray, and I don't want Kyler Murray. I think he's a terrific athlete. He has terrific ability, really high upside. But anybody, when they put in your contract that you have to study for 4 hours a week, I don't think I want that type of quarterback on my team.
But
matter of fact, I say I don't think. I don't want that type of quarterback. And I think he has terrific ability, terrific talent. He's a special player in that way, special thrower of the ball. But especially with Kyle Shanahan, you're not watching film and you're not on the same page as him, and you're kind of you want to freelance, that would not go over well. So any trade that involves Kyler Murray, even remotely close to San Francisco in the Bay Area, I would say, I'm out, especially for Nick Bosa.
Would the cost have to be more of a premium for a team? Let's say the Packers, if the Green Bay Packers came calling from the NFC versus, hey, Mike McDaniel from the AFC and the Dolphins come calling and offering would the package have to be more significant coming from an NFC team, or is it like it doesn't matter as long as if you're getting 3 first-round picks, kind of there? I
think if you're getting the capital that you want, then it doesn't matter, right? Like we just saw with the Trey Lance trade, it was like there were some teams calling and there was interest, and there was like a 6th-round pick or a 5th-round pick or whatever. Cowboys NFC team came in, they were like, hey, we'll give you a 4th-round pick, and the 49ers like, done, because that's the best offer that we got. So if a team is just offering you more than the other teams, regardless of who that team is, I think you kind of just obviously depending on what the capital is, you have to kind of weigh the positives in it. But I would say definitely you'd have to consider taking even the team that you might play against.
I think absolutely. Texas boy says 49ers are trash. I'm sure that's a well thought out response right there. I did have a
49ers are trash. He's clearly a Dallas Cowboy fan, and he got his logo is a Texas. Let's see, will it pop up on here? He got a star in the middle of the Texas logo, and the Niners have knocked him out the playoffs the last 2 years. So,
so
there are people who I would accept saying that, like the Philadelphia Eagles, if they said it, or Kansas City Chiefs fans, they said it like, oh, 49ers are trash because their teams knocked the Niners out the playoffs last couple years. The Rams, can't even hear from the Rams because they're terrible right now. But they might be able to escape a little bit because they beat the Niners and won the Super Bowl. The Cowboys cannot say it. I say all that to say that. Like the Cowboys, you have been knocked out by the playoffs by the Niners the last 2 years with two different quarterbacks. Like we don't want to hear it from you. But go ahead.
While chat's still kind of figuring out what the ideal trade package would be for somebody like
there is no ideal trade package for Nick Bosa. He's such a special player. He does so much. I think he means so much to the Niners. There is no ideal package that you could like. It's like, well, we get this, and it's going to make me feel better about it. Because even with draft picks, I don't know what they are. So on paper, it's like, oh, that's cool, but you never know how you're going to utilize them. I would say the Trey Lance trade, where the 3 first rounds or whatever I think Miami did a great job with those, like making it to where it wasn't just draft picks. It was Tyreek Hill, then it was like Jalen Waddle, then it was again Bradley Chubb from the Broncos, and then it's like what they did was really great because typically it's not like that. If you look at the Philadelphia Eagles trade up to get Carson Wentz, look at what came from that, like all the players, and there was a lot. There was a lot of movement and all that. It was trash, and typically most likely is like it's more that than what Miami did, where they actually did an amazing job with all the picks. So, there is no ideal trade because we don't know who those picks are, like what player. The trade at the time, getting the 13th overall pick for DeForest Buckner, if you weren't going to bring him back, that was actually like, man, that's good. Like, that's good cap. You got the 13th overall pick. But it turned into a guy that has a bum knee and he can barely get on the field. So at the time, it was like, man. So now it's just like, I don't want the draft picks. I want Nick Bosa. So just pay him. Just pay him. But all right, Gammon, I got to get you out of here, man. Appreciate you coming on.
Cool.
I don't want the draft picks. I want Nick Bosa. Like it's such a crapshoot with the draft. It's such a crapshoot. Obviously, we saw that with how the Trey Lance situation was handled with the 49ers and the way that has played out. We see it every year with guys, and I think the Niners have, they've gotten good players, whatever, but Bosa is like a generational pass rusher. I don't want to say generational. He kind of is in the sense of getting a guy like that in the draft. But when I think of generational, it's like one of one, where it's like you are Reggie White or, Lawrence Taylor. I think he is damn good. But are there other edge rushers I would potentially take over him? Like the fact that I would even think about it, right? Like right now you can have Nick Bosa or TJ Watt. It's like, oh, you know what? Let me think about that. You can have Myles Garrett or Nick Bosa. You know what? Let me think about that. You got Michael Parsons or Nick Bosa. You know what? Let me think about that. So I don't think you're generational. If there's other guys that I could offer you for it, and I would, and I could I have to think about it. I think right now, or maybe let's say, the New York Giants at that time, was there an edge rusher or an off-ball linebacker or anything that you could offer for Lawrence Taylor for them to even think about it? Probably not. Probably not. So again, that's generational. I hate the generational work. It's thrown out so much, but I think he's a terrific. How about this? He is a generational edge rusher for the Niners, right? Like he's a once in a generational edge rusher for the Niners, but not a once in a generational edge rusher for the entire NFL. I like looking at it that way. All right, man. 49ers versus Pittsburgh Steelers. We're going to be getting into a lot more of it this week. There's going to be probably some pre-recorded shows because my wife has me going to a wedding. It's in Pensacola, Florida. Then I will be going to the 49ers Steelers game, but I don't want to go to the wedding. I don't want to go. Excuse me. I don't want to go to the wedding. And there's like no way to get out of it. My daughter's the flower girl. My wife is the best. Was not best man, but what's it for the women? The maid of honor. My wife is the maid of honor. I don't want to go to a wedding. And not her cousin Kayla. Great. She's sweet. Her dude. They're cool. But I just don't want to go to a wedding. I think I've been to one wedding, 2 weddings. It's like, I'd rather be home. So, yeah, we'll see how that whole thing works out. But anyways, I have to travel out Wednesday. So it's like, am I only going to get it to record today, tomorrow, and then how am I going to record Thursday and Friday and all that stuff? I don't know. We're going to think about that. But I will say, for this show, we're probably done for today. But we'll be back tomorrow. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Make sure that y'all
Like and subscribe this video.
Underdog Fantasy, promo code Crocky. Download the app or go to underdogfantasy.com. They'll double your deposit up to $100. Piper says, you shouldn't have said that. My wife knows, hey, if you guys are hearing it, just know it's not the first time I've said it. All right. So my wife, we're very open with each other. Our communication is on point. I talk to people. There has been somebody that was like, and it was a guy. Was it Emmanuel Acho? It was somebody on Twitter, and he was like, "What is the key? What is the key to marriage?" Like he was like, from a single man, like looking at it, like your experienced people in marriages, which I've been married 8 years now, but he's like the experienced people. What is the key to having a successful marriage? And I was like, I can sum it up. We can talk about all these different things. There's so much that goes into having a successful marriage. Like there's so much. But I think if I could sum it up to one thing, it is healthy communication. Healthy communication. If you have healthy communication, and when I say healthy communication, right, because there's people that say communication is key in a marriage, or communication is key in a relationship. And it's like, yeah, but how are you communicating? Because if I say, bitch, I told you to take out the trash, I'm communicating to you that I want you to take out the trash. Is that the right way that you're supposed to tell somebody to take out the trash? Probably not. But the communication, like it was communicated, right? So I say healthy communication. My wife and I, we talk about everything together. There's nothing that we don't say to each other or feel uncomfortable talking about it. Even the uncomfortable things, like we have a conversation about it in a more healthy manner. So healthy communication is key. And I say that because there's nothing that I've said on this show that I have not said to her. So my wife knows I don't care to go to the wedding. I don't really care. Eric, you're going. Your plate's already paid for. Your daughter's a flower girl. You're going. Got your wife. I got it. So I will be there. But she knows that I don't want to be there. And I love her cousin. They're great. I just don't care to go to the wedding. All right. Now, maybe if it was like my brother or something like that, like, yeah, of course. But Niner game day. He says sometimes it needs to happen, bro. Healthy communication, man. Healthy communication. That is the number one key. Anybody in a relationship, you're in a marriage or whatever, if you communicate the wrong way, if it's not a very healthy way, people shut down. They are a little bit more worried to tell you certain things. And my wife, I feel like there's nothing that she is not comfortable with talking to me about or tell me about as it pertains to her feelings. Maybe sometimes she don't want to nag or whatever if she sees I'm like busy or whatever. But yeah, healthy communication, that is key. Bitch, I said take out the trash. Like that conversation doesn't happen in our house. Is your bro going to the game? Yeah, man, he actually here right now, and we are going to the game. He's a diehard Pittsburg Steelers fan, so you already know, man, we locked in. And I will be John Chapman. John Chapman has, so if you are on Twitter, go to John Chapman stuff or listen to his podcast, the 49ers Rush podcast, so you can get the details. He got the 49ers Road Rush. Gosh, why am I blanking on what it's called? All right, but I'm gonna get this right. I retweeted it out. I've gone to it all the time. The 49ers Pittsburgh invasion. Join the night before from 2 to 9 p.m. Join us the night before from 2 to 9 p.m. 49ers versus Steelers. This is different than maybe it is. Well, anyways, 49ersrushroadtrip.com. Go to that. And you see all the detail, get your tickets, all that stuff. Because we're going to be rocking. 2 to 9, hopefully I'm not drunk all day. All right, y'all see me and it's like, dang, Croc was out of here. Hey, man, mind your business, man. Mind your business. All right. But, all right. That's going to do it for this episode, man. I want to tell you a fart. Guys are fart in front of each other. My wife will not fart in front of me. She will fart in her sleep, though. And I give her a hard time about that. As far as me, man, shit, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. Right away. All right. Appreciate everybody that's in the chat, man. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. I hope all y'all have healthy communication, not just with your wives or your spouses or whatever, but also with other 49er fans, because y'all be tripping. But all right, I'm out, man. I'll see y'all tomorrow. 8 a.m. Pacific. Peace.